we'll confirm it with a quorum with a roll call.
Thanks, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. A virtual meeting of the MAG Management Committee is now called to order. We'll go ahead and take roll at this time.
Thank you, Chair Ching. And members of the Management Committee. I'll go down a list of members by member agency. Please unmute and indicate if you're present or serving as proxy, if not already indicated. Bryant Powell.
Here.
Thank you. Pilar Sanawi.
Here.
Roger. Thank you, Pilar. Roger Klingler. Gary Neese. Joshua Wright.
Here.
Thank you. Crystal Dykes.
Here.
Thank you. Brent Billingsley.
Present.
Thank you. Grady Miller.
Here.
Thank you. Kathy Valenzuela. Patrick Banger.
Present.
Thank you. Kevin Phelps.
Present.
Thank you. Julie Cairns.
Here.
Thank you. Jeff Kalaga.
Here.
Thank you. Matthew Williams.
Here.
Thank you. Joy Rich. Is there anyone on from City of Maricopa? Chris Brady.
Here.
Chris, thank you. Jill Kymack.
Here.
Thank you. Katie Gregory.
Here, sitting
Thank
in
you.
for Jeff Tyne.
Thank you. Ed Zerker. Is there anyone on from Pinal County?
Chris Wanamaker, Pinal County.
John Cross.
Here.
Thank you. Scott Smith. Is there anyone on from Scottsdale? Mike Frazier. Reyes Medrano. Vince Lorfeis. Jean Blackman.
Here.
Thank you. Jody Rooney.
Here.
Thank you. And our chair is present. Is there anyone that I missed?
Present.
You're breaking up. Can you try again? We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Please remember to unmute your device before speaking and to set it to mute when you are not speaking to create a positive experience for all attendees. As a further reminder, for the clarity of the record, when making a motion or seconding a motion, if you could please state your name and then make the motion so we can have the names of all the move-ins and seconds into the record clearly. Thank you. Our second item today is call to the audience. Members of the public were asked to submit written comments related to this meeting through the MAG website. Comments can be sent at any time leading up to the meeting, but must be received at least 1 hour prior to the posted start time for the meeting. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. MAG staff, have we received any public comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Management Committee. We received no public comments for the call to the audience or any other item on the agenda.
Thank you very much. Having no comments, we will now move on to agenda item number 3, Executive Director's Report. Eric Anderson will provide this report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We go to the next slide. So on July 15th, Secretary of Transportation Buttigieg was in town touring the South Central Light Rail site in particular, as well as some of the needs on the Gila River Indian community. So we were fortunate to have him here. As you see, Mayor Giles and Mayor Gallego both participated in the conference, as well as former mayor and now representatives Greg Stanton, and not shown in the picture, but Congressman Ruben Gallego was also present there too. So very good event. This is the first time the secretary had been back in Phoenix since he was here during the presidential campaign in 2004. And he was amazed by the progress that the region's made, not just in the rail component, but also the other transportation components. He did recognize the high level of regional cooperation we have here. And both Mayor Giles and Mayor Gallego really recognized the MAG process as a key to that regional cooperation. So very pleased to hear that. And once again, it's a testament to the hard work that we just put in putting together the investment plan for the extension of Prop 400. So very, very nice event. Go to the next slide. So just late in July 30th, we hosted virtually crossing guard training. This is something we do every year here to refresh the crossing guards on proper safety procedures and making sure our children stay safe, as well as training new crossing guards. So this is, in the past, we've had 300, 400, 500 participants in this. So it's a very, very popular training program. And once again, we continue to do this, and shout out to our safety program manager, Margaret Herrera, who spearheaded that effort. Go to the next slide. Also, Management Committee and Regional Council did approve accepting a $50,000 grant from the lottery, Arizona Lottery, as part of their Give Back sponsorship program. This provided the funding for over 300,000 bottles of water to support the MAG's Heat Relief Network. Once again, very thankful for the lottery. Great press coverage. Shout out again to our communications team for putting all that together. The MAG chair, John Giles, was there as well as others. So once again, the Arizona Lottery Executive Director, Greg Edgar, was very, very pleased with the outcome, and hopefully we'll continue this relationship with the Arizona Lottery in the future. Go to the next slide. Last thing I have for you today, and it's actually part of your consent agenda items today. September 1st is Second Responders Day of Appreciation. So on your consent calendar agenda today, there is a resolution support for that. There's a toolkit available online. And once again, if you have any follow-up questions on that, Amy St. Peter can help you out on that. So, Mr. Chair, that completes my report for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Please contact Eric after the meeting if you have any questions regarding his report. We will now move on to item 4, approval of the consent agenda. Items 4A through 4H are on the consent agenda. Does any member of Management Committee have questions or would like a presentation on any of the items? Hearing none, could I have a motion to recommend approval of consent agenda items 4A through 4H?
This is Grady from Fountain Hills. I move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Brent from Florence, second.
Appreciate it. We have a motion from Grady, Fountain Hills, and a second from Brent in Florence. Is there discussion of the motion? Hearing none, we will now take a roll call vote on the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Management Committee. I will call your name. Please indicate how you vote. Bryant Powell.
Yes.
Thank you. Pilar Sanawi. Roger Klingler. Gary Neese. Carrie Dyrek.
Aye.
Thank you. Joshua Wright.
Yes.
Thank you. Crystal Dykes.
Aye.
Thank you. Brent Billingsley.
Aye.
Thank you. Grady Miller.
Aye.
Thank you. Kathy Valenzuela. Patrick Banger.
Aye.
Thank you. Kevin Phelps.
Present? Yes, aye.
Thank you. Julie Cairns.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeff Kulaga.
Aye.
Thank you. Matthew Williams.
Aye.
Thank you. Joy Rich. Chris Brady.
Yes.
Thank you. Jill Kymack.
Aye.
Thank you. Katie Gregory.
Aye.
Thank you. John Cross.
Yes.
Thank you. Scott Smith. Mike Frazier.
Yes.
Thank you. Reyes Madrano. Vince Lorfeis.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeannie Blackman.
Yes.
Thank you. Jody Rooney.
Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Thank you. Is there anyone that I missed? The consent agenda does carry unanimously.
Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item number 5, wrong way detection revised scope. MAG Transportation staff Patrick Stone will introduce this item.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of Management Committee. This item is on your agenda for possible action. And to begin, I'd like to introduce Susan Anderson with the Arizona Department of Transportation. She will be helping me present this item. Next slide, please. To begin, I wanted to provide a little bit of background on the project. This project was originally part of a call for projects that was held in March of 2019, and it was part of the integrated corridor management funding that was originally included in the SM&O plan that was approved by Regional Council in August of 2018. The concept for this project is a scaled down version of the pilot deployment done on I-17. The intent here is to install thermal detection cameras. Susan, did you want to take over from here, please?
I can. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Susan Anderson with Arizona Department of Transportation and pleased to present a little bit more on our wrong way detection project. As Patrick mentioned, the purpose of this project is to install wrong way vehicle detection cameras at additional freeway locations. The 2 locations that were proposed in the project were determined based on historical records that we have at ADOT, as well as information provided from DPS regarding their 911 calls. Next slide, please. The 2 locations with the highest number of wrong way incursions had happened along Loop 101 between I-10 and Grand, as well as Loop 202 between I-10 and McClintock Drive. So these 2 locations were identified in the SM&O plan for additional wrong way detection cameras for installation. Next slide, please. And for those of you that may not have seen this before, this is a slide showing all of the many components that were deployed as part of the wrong way detection pilot. It includes the thermal cameras, as well as many other devices, such as the illuminated wrong way signs and our CCTV cameras and DMS boards. The purpose of this project is specifically for the thermal cameras. We use those for detecting wrong way vehicles that enter the ramps and onto the main lines. The challenge with the thermal cameras are that we install those on a stable device at the interchange, as well as along the main line in order to detect wrong way vehicles. The project locations where we have identified currently, we had proposed to install the thermal cameras on the signal poles, and the challenge has come up that the signal poles are not actually ADOT facilities. So ADOT has taken a step back to look over our freeway locations to see where do we actually have locations that would be appropriate for installing the thermal cameras. We are now looking at the thermal cameras to be mounted on our DMS boards throughout the valley. So next slide, please. The request with this project is to revise the scope to install wrong way thermal detection cameras along the entire Loop 101 freeway. That would allow ADOT to install thermal cameras on our 20 DMS locations along the entire freeway location. The schedule for doing this would be over an 18-month schedule. This actually coincides very well with the ongoing Loop 101 mobility project. The schedule will encompass 6 to 9 months for the actual procurement of the cameras, and then about 6 to 9 months for the installation and integration, which we would then do with our in-house staff. The budget is approximately $18,000 per location, and that would cover the 20 locations. So there was no change in budget of $350,000 of CMAQ funding. However, we do have the request to defer the funding to fiscal year 22. Next slide, please. Thus, the project scope that we are requesting is to expand the scope to cover the full 61 miles of Loop 101. That would be from I-10 all the way to Loop 202 in the Chandler area. Next slide, please. This graphic is provided just so you might have more of a visual concept of what we're looking at. It would be installing 2 thermal cameras on each of our DMS boards in the freeway. And by this, each camera, we hope, would be able to pick up detection of wrong-way vehicles in each travel direction. The equipment cost would be $18,000 per location. Next slide, please. ADOT is continuing to provide project reporting on this as far as safety and the number of wrong-way events that are occurring. We do coordinate with DPS for statewide data, and we do track the number of incursions that occur throughout all the corridors. That information is tracked in a database, and those metrics are reported to ADOT management on a monthly basis. We will continue to do so with the expansion of the program. Next slide, please. And with this, I'll hand it back over to Patrick.
Thank you, Susan. So members of Mr. Chair, members of the Management Committee, the requested action before you today is to recommend approval of the project scope modification request for ADOT's wrong-way detection project, MAG tip ID DOT 21-813, and to revise the ADOT wrong-way detection project in accordance with the closed tip amendment request. Next slide. Mr. Chair, members of the Management Committee, that concludes our presentation. We'd be available for any questions you or the committee may have.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Thank you, Ms. Anderson, for your presentation. Are there any questions or comments from membership? Okay. Hearing none, this item is on the agenda to recommend approval of the project scope modification request for ADOT's wrong-way drive detection project, DOT 21-813, and to revise the ADOT wrong-way detection project in accordance with the TIP amendment request. Is there a motion?
Chairman, this is Patrick and Gilbert. I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Julian Goodyear, second.
I think I heard Julie first on the second. So we have a motion and we have a second to approve this item. Is there any discussion of this motion? Hearing none, I will now ask for a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Management Committee. I'll call your name. Please indicate how you vote. Bryant Powell.
Aye.
Thank you. Pilar Sanawi. Carrie Dyrick. Joshua Wright.
Yes.
Thank you. Crystal Dykes.
Aye.
Thank you. Brent Billingsley.
Aye.
Thank you. Grady Miller.
Aye.
Thank you. Kathy Valenzuela. Patrick Banger.
Aye.
Thank you. Kevin Phelps.
Aye.
Thank you. Julie Cairns.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeff Kulaga.
Aye.
Thank you. Matthew Williams.
Aye.
Thank you. Chris Brady.
Aye.
Thank you. Jill Kymack.
Aye.
Thank you. Katie Gregory.
Aye.
Thank you. John Cross.
Aye.
Thank you. Jennifer Jack.
Aye.
Thank you. Mike Frazier.
Aye.
Thank you. Vince Lorifeis.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeannie Blackman.
Yes.
Thank you. Jody Rooney.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Thank you. Is there anyone that I missed? That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. We'll now move on to agenda item number 6. That is project scope modification request, Pinal County Marsh Road, Russell Road to Midway Road, Russell Road from Marsh Road to ARICA Road. MAG Transportation Staff Samantha Samples will introduce the item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Management Committee. It's a pleasure to be here today. The Federal Highway Administration funding allocated to the MAG region is programmed in accordance with the MAG Federal Fund Programming Guidelines and Procedures, which were approved by the MAG Regional Council June 24th, 2015. These guidelines require that any project modifications be reviewed and recommended for approval by the modal technical committees from which they were first programmed. So it's my pleasure today to introduce Chris Wanamaker, Pinal County Engineer, to present this request for the project scope modification for the county's Marsh Road project. Chris? Chris, are you here?
Samantha, I know he was on earlier. I don't see him on anymore, though, unfortunately. It's he may have dropped off. I don't see him. There he is.
Okay. Nope.
Hey, sorry about that. You guys, can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just turned on my microphone and the whole thing froze. Anyway, sorry about that. So yeah, good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Chris Wanamaker, Pinal County Engineer, to present agenda item number 6. So go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So we're requesting a scope modification to the Pinal County's Marsh Road project, Russell Road from Midway Road, and Russell Road from Marsh Road to ARICA Road. I won't read all this on the slide, but basically, if approved, this proposed tip change would reduce the scope to improve only a 1-mile segment of Marsh Road from Midway to Indian Valley, which you can see on the map on the next slide. The amount of federal funding allocated for designing and programming this proposed project would be reduced to $1,557,956. The estimated federal savings would result in $1,822,416 if the request is approved. Next slide, please. So the segment of Marsh Road that we will keep in the project is from Indian Valley to Midway, the 1-mile segment, and the portion that we will be removing from the scope is from Russell Road to Indian Valley. Next slide, please. So this slide just shows the actual amendment, striking out portions of the project and leaving the 1-mile segment of Marsh Road in there. Next slide, please. So yeah, with that, I can take any questions on this proposed reduction in scope for this project.
Thank you, Mr. Wanamaker. Are there any questions or comments from membership?
Hey, Chris, this is Brent from Florence. Just curious, why the scope reduction?
Yeah, good question. So the main reason is once we got back the cost estimate from our consultant on how much this the paving project would actually be. It was significantly more than what our budget was, and we don't have the budget for the cost share. So that's why we removed the portions from the project. We're only going to do with these funds that 1 mile segment, and then we'll do the other segments with a different funding later. We have to defer it to the future.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. This item is on the agenda to recommend approval of the project scope modification request for Pinal County's Marsh Road, Russell Road to Midway Road, Russell Road, Marsh Road to ARICA Road, project PNL 23-00C/PNL 23-001C, and to revise the Marsh Road, Russell Road to Midway Road, Russell Road, Marsh Road to ARICA Road project in accordance with the enclosed TIP amendment requests. Hearing all that, is there a motion?
This is Brent. I move approval.
Thank you. We have a second?
Jean Blackman, Youngtown, second.
Appreciate it. We have a motion and a second for approval of item number 6. We'll go ahead and take the roll call vote at this time, barring any discussion, I should say. Do we have discussion? Okay. Hearing none, go ahead and we'll take the roll call vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the MAG Management Committee. I will call your name. Please indicate how you vote. Bryant Powell.
Yes.
Thank you. Roger Klingler. Roger. Carrie Direct. Joshua Wright.
Yes.
Thank you. Crystal Dykes.
Aye.
Thank you. Brent Billingsley.
Aye.
Thank you. Grady Miller.
Aye.
Thank you. Kathy Valenzuela. Patrick Banger.
Aye.
Thank you. Kevin Phelps.
Aye.
Thank you. Julie Cairns.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeff Kulaga.
Aye.
Thank you. Matthew Williams.
Aye.
Thank you. Chris Brady.
Yes.
Thank you. Jill Kymack.
Aye.
Thank you. Katie Gregory.
Aye.
Thank you. John Cross.
Aye.
Thank you. Scott Smith. Mike Frazier.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Jennifer Jack.
Aye.
Thank you. Vince Lorfeis.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeannie Blackman.
Yes.
Thank you. Jody Rooney.
Mr. Chairman, this is Roger Klingler. I vote aye.
Thank you, Roger. Jody Rooney.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Thank you. Is there anyone that I missed? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously.
Very good. Thank you. Item number 7 is Regional Competitive Programs 2021 Call for Projects. MAG Transportation Staff Patrick Stone will again provide a report.
Again, Mr. Chair, members of the Management Committee, thank you. I'm always pleased to present this item for your information. If we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the request overview that I'm going to be presenting today is twofold. One is an overview of the specific modal requests for this call for project cycle. Second, I'm going to go over the fact sheet that was provided to members of this committee and discuss some key deadlines associated with the call. One thing I did want to emphasize on this graphic, in your lower left-hand corner, you'll notice with the green header bar, it shows a snippet of the call for project screen. This is actually our online portal. We have 3 of our applications are done electronically. Just wanted to get and take the opportunity to do a little shout out to our MAG staff who have really put together some phenomenal calls. if you get a chance, if your staff gets a chance to go through these, they really are robust, very easy to fill out, very nicely laid out. So I just want to give a little small shout out there. If we can go to the next slide, please. So what I wanted to do with this slide, and we did this slide last year, is this slide kind of shows the diversity of the funding that's utilized in the call for projects. What we have is we identified the different funding sources available and also the different modal programs. So within our non-life cycle programs, you can see that we hit almost all of the different modal categories, and we use quite a variety of funding sources to actually have this call. Next slide, please. I do have to apologize to committee members. Unfortunately, I have transitions built into these slides that's delaying the updates. We'll get that corrected for the future. Focusing on the fact sheet that went out with the call on August 2nd, obviously the critical emphasis, the due dates. So there are two sets of due dates. The first is September 17th. That covers active transportation, our Avondale Goodyear urbanized area transit, street sweepers, paving of unpaved roads, our arterial bridge program in Pinal County, and then our systems management and operations, our SM&O program. And then similarly, we have due dates of October 1st for both our roadway safety program and then our non-infrastructure safe routes to school. On the right-hand side, we kind of outline the various years that we're programming for within each of the buckets, and then also the total amounts available in this call. It's a very robust call, just over $48 million available. So looking forward to hopefully having a bunch of applications submitted. In the lower left-hand corner, call out attention to a few things coming up in the future. The big one, the first one, the workshop on August 19th. This is the opportunity for staff from member agencies to speak with the MAG technical staff if there are questions regarding the call for projects. A big thank you to our member agencies. As of, I think, yesterday, I had over 80 participants who've identified that they will be attending the call. I think I have about 15 tentative, only a handful of declines. So I think we'll have a very good attendance at that workshop, very excited. Then we'll follow that up the following week with an open house. That's a little more free form, allows staff just to drop in if they have a specific question. All the technical experts, once again, will be available. We can answer those questions. And then if needed, on September 2nd, we would have another open house. Next slide, please. And Mr. Chair, that concludes my presentation. I'd be available for any questions from yourself or members of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Are there any questions from membership? Okay, hearing none. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion only. So thank you. We'll now move to agenda item number 8, results of the Proposition 400 performance audit. MAG Transportation Staff Ted Brown is present to give a report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon. As you said, my name is Ted Brown. I'm the Transportation Performance Program Manager here at MAG. I have an update on the results of the recently completed Proposition 400 performance audit. Next slide. A little context. This is a legislative requirement embedded in statute. Every 5 years, auditors meet with MAG and our partners to review expenditures from the previous 5 years and examine the performance of the system in relieving congestion and improving mobility. This is our 3rd audit, the last 2 being completed in 2010 and 2016. Next slide, please. This is a collaborative effort between MAG, ADOT, and Valley Metro, collectively referred to as the RTP partners, that began in October of 2020 with an entrance meeting and some initial data requests. The next 6 months or so consisted of a series of interviews with the appropriate subject matter experts at each organization. The auditors also requested a wide array of additional materials, everything from technical methodological documentation to meeting minutes from MAG's various committees, to any number of reports and studies that we've produced over the last 5 years. The audit officially wrapped up on July 1st when the report was released by the Arizona Auditor General. A little more context, the 2010 audit had 27 findings and recommendations. The 2016 audit had 12, but I'm very, very pleased to announce that this audit has no findings or recommendations. And to quote the auditors directly, next slide. MAG and its RTP partners delivered Prop 400 projects as promised and realized many accomplishments in accordance with revised plans vetted by the appropriate decision makers. This audit highlights MAG's continued commitment to excellence in program management and our stewardship of public funding. The auditors were especially complimentary of the professionalism and cooperative spirit shown by MAG and its partners. These results are something we should be extremely proud of, especially as we endeavor towards enabling legislation. Next slide, please. With no findings or recommendations, no public meeting is required and no committee or board action is necessary, making this item for information and discussion. Next slide, please. Mr. Chair, that completes my presentation and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Ted. Are there any questions from membership? Okay, hearing none. I just want to say congratulations on having a clean audit. Really, I know a lot of work goes into getting to that sort of result, so much appreciation to you and to all the staff at MAG who were involved. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion only. So thank you, and we will move on to agenda item number 10, legislative update. MAG Policy and Government Relations Director Nathan Pryor will provide a report.
Mr. Chairman, this is Amy St. Peter. Would you care to hear the report on the evictions in response prior to the legislative update?
You know what? I would, because that is in fact agenda item number 9.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Numbers is, there had to be some wrinkle in an otherwise smooth meeting. So yes, moving on from 8 to 9, as is the custom in these parts, we will go expiration of eviction moratorium, current trends and resources. MAG Executive Director Amy St. Peter will introduce this item. Proceed.
Excellent.
Thanks, Amy. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee for this opportunity. We're pleased to be able to provide this information to you today. The purpose of this presentation will be to share the latest trends and resources related to evictions. This is, of course, a very significant issue, not just for our region, but for the entire country as well. The impact of the moratorium eventually, thankfully not being lifted quite yet, could be to increase already high rates of homelessness and also introduce a whole new generation of people to homelessness in the sense that they've not experienced this before in many cases. We're tracking these latest developments as part of our regional efforts to strengthen the response to homelessness. And at the end of this presentation, we'll talk a bit about how this work relates to the Regional Homeless Action Plan that is under development. It's my pleasure now to introduce you to TJ Reed. He's the newest member of our homelessness planning team here at MAG, and he brings significant expertise in data analysis, human services, and public policy. TJ, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Amy. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, as Amy said, we're going to be sharing some insights around evictions and the response within Maricopa County. Next slide, please. And so most namely, we're going to walk through a few different sources of data that have provided insights into what is going on and what the projections are in the future. Next slide, please. So MAG was able to work with multiple stakeholders and groups that do research or what is publicly accessible to identify many of the renters who are at risk within the Maricopa region. And so I wanted to clarify a couple of points here. These are residential rents, not commercial. And this is specific to those that are at risk, not necessarily the court filings that have gone on over the last year and a half or so. So in our partnership with Arizona State University, they did a study related to some of the money that is going through for emergency rental assistance, some census data, and a few other sources to project out that just below 20% of renters may be evicted after the moratorium is up. Zillow, which many of you may be familiar with, is available via web or mobile application. They have a lot of information and insights around rentals and purchases of property, and they share that roughly 16% of renters are at risk of eviction. The census has also provided what's called pulse surveys. Many of you may be familiar with this already, but it's surveys that are sent out roughly every 2 weeks that are outside of the normal process to ensure that there are up-to-date responses. The intent behind this is to inform municipalities and regions to better respond to the need. And they showed over 20% of people at high risk of evictions. And then the Arizona Multi-Housing Association, which is in contrast to many of the other sources here, projects much lower, below 5% rates. And they are advising all their landlords to truly be flexible and work with residents during this trying time. So the next slide, please. So with this, here are the main takeaways from all of this information that was just shared. Many people are at risk. And so with roughly 400,000 renters, these ranges of people at risk are anywhere between several thousand to upwards of 80,000. There is so much variability within this information that there isn't really consensus on what will actually happen. Speaking with people from the justice courts, they are essentially telling everybody that will listen that this is up to landlords and how they respond. If all landlords decide to move towards eviction filings, then there may be a lot of evictions. If landlords are flexible and working with tenants, there may be less. And so with that, there are actions not only that these landlords can take, but that we can take, and many of which have already been in place, right? So emergency rental assistance is happening right now. There are different programs that are happening now that people can tap into. Before we get to that, next slide, please. This agenda item was added just as the moratorium ended for just about 3 days, and then another moratorium was actually put in place. This moratorium was much more specific and only applicable to communities with high transmission rates of COVID-19. It extends this moratorium 60 days. And just for everybody's clarity, actually all counties within Arizona are applicable under the requirements of this new notice. Again, I wanted to clarify with the Maricopa Justice Courts that they, during that time where there was no moratorium, the 3 days, they did not see a tsunami. They did not see a flood. They saw rates basically what they were before. And so I think that is not going to tell the whole story because that was only 3 days. However, the note that they would share is that it was not just a flood. There are a lot of considerations to make in terms of even technicalities of getting things through the courts. Next slide, please. As this committee has heard, MAG is working with regional coordination groups with representatives from all of our member agencies to work on regional tactics. Some of the ones that are coming up right now as we're working towards progress to presenting to this committee and regional council include diversion programs from homelessness and the court systems, where you're working with people where they're at to ensure that they have the resources and potentially the assistance necessary to where they don't need to enter homelessness or even legal filings of eviction. Working around new tools to increase efficiencies. We've worked with several municipalities to administer emergency rental assistance dollars, utilizing guidance from federal partners to be able to use technologies to make that process quicker. One of our examples is income verification using mapping versus going through getting actual bank statements and things like that for administering the rental assistance. And then last is coordination communication with the school systems. Many people are at risk and struggling, and our school system has identified many of them. And so if our municipalities, our towns, our tribal communities can connect with those schools to work with the families that are at risk, we can make a lot of impact in those areas. Next slide, please. We wanted to make sure that this presentation was useful to you on a practical level. So here are several resources that you can access via the links that are provided. I'll walk through them very quickly. There's a rental assistance collaboration through Vitalist Health Foundation and the Virginia G. Piper Charitable Trust. The link below is azevictionhelp.org and has a lot of insights and resources, both legally and for rent assistance. They also, for those who are interested in publicizing this, have a social media toolkit, which is essentially saved images that you can put on whatever social media that you're using. They even have videos associated with it. For those in need of services, we always encourage people to contact 211, our community information and referral. You can do that by calling the number or visiting the website. There is also substantial coverage from the Arizona Republic with 2 articles that we would recommend people review that would provide a lot more insights than we can with the short time that we have before you today. And the last tool is actually a tool from the Maricopa Association of Governments. It's a hand up tool, which is built in collaboration with many partners. You can go to the next slide. This is what the tool looks like. What it provides on the right-hand side, you'll see the actual capacities and assets of each community. You can filter any of them in and out. And on the left-hand side, you can layer maps over it. So it can be census tracts, it can be homeless information, it can be eviction data related to at-risk populations. There's a lot of insights that can be gleaned from this, and it is available to you all. If you do not currently have access to this, it does require a password. Please reach out to myself or Amy St. Peter after this to receive that password to make sure you have access to this. In addition, you can reach out to us if you would like us to walk through it as well. Next slide, please. That concludes this portion of the presentation. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Amy St. Peter.
Great. Thank you so much, TJ, for that presentation. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, we'd be happy to take any questions or direction that you might have. We are tracking this information very closely and working with you and your staff to determine how we might address this through the regional response to homelessness. We'll be available for next month to be able to offer an update on the regional action plan that is being developed right now with tactics that are fully informed by the nonprofit community, philanthropy, as well as the academic institutions who are partnering with us. So it's very important that these efforts align with your priorities and help to meet the needs of your residents, housed and unhoused. The plan is to offer you an update next month, to offer the actual plan itself, the tactics, in October, and then to offer those same for action in November. Happy to take any questions that you might have, and thank you again for your partnership. Mr. Chairman, back to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Amy, TJ. Any questions from membership?
Yeah, Andrew, it's Chris.
Thank you.
Amy, help me, what I would like to see in the future, maybe as you bring these briefings back, and I thought I saw, I don't know if it came from MAG or someone sent out kind of the information about the historical cases that are they're in front of the courts, right, that have been processed by month for the last couple of years. And I get it, because of the moratorium, they're kind of, that's not reflective of what the reality is. But it did so 2019 by month. And then I guess what would be helpful is maybe each time we make this presentation, is it helpful to kind of see what's in the pipeline in the course, because we kind of see this coming? Because I know one of the tactics we could have is trying to work with the courts, or try to make sure that the courts know that the cities have the available resources, and see if there's a way to, I don't know if the word is intervene, but to provide a resource as the part of the hearing process. I mean, I think there's a way, hopefully it never gets to this point with the courts, but if it does, it'd be interesting to kind of track those. Is that a number we can get readily, the information about what's tracking through the courts? Because I thought I saw that by month for each year. Is that possible to get that kind of information?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Brady, and members of the committee, I'll turn this over to TJ in just a moment. But yes, we have provided that information. It's available on the MAG website, and it does show by community the filings and the cases that have gone through month by month over the past year or so, 2 years. TJ, do you have information that you'd like to add to that?
Sure, Mr. Brady, Mr. Chair, and members of the committee, just to echo what Amy said, that is available. And then we have a partnership with the Maricopa Justice Courts, and they are sending that information out consistently as well to be able to provide insights on previous years during the moratorium and then after the moratorium too. So, and I also love that idea around partnering with the courts. That is on the agenda for diverting people from those courts and connecting people going through filings to ensure that they're connected with the resources that are necessary.
Okay, awesome. Because I mean, as much as we're trying to reach out to residents, to landlords, if someone slips through the cracks, maybe that's kind of the last ditch effort. Because the only thing I'll disagree with, Amy, is I don't want this to be a homeless program. I want this to be a stay-in-home program, right? I mean, we're trying to avoid the homeless program. This is the stay-in-the-home program. So thanks for the info. If we, so that's on the MAG website. That's probably where I saw it. I can look it up there. And how up is it, like a month behind, or how recent is it? Do you know?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Brady, members of the committee, we can send updated information out to the members of this committee, as well as to provide the link to what's available right now on the MAG website.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Following up on what Chris said, I'm just curious, there's such a disparity between 3 of the predictors that you showed on that early slide and what AMA is predicting in terms of hovering between somewhere between 16 and 20% versus 5%. If we have the data that we're getting, as was just mentioned, from the justice courts and the pipeline of cases that are pending or have been approved but haven't been executed on yet, wouldn't that be the basis of determining how many people are about to be evicted, unless there's some disparity between intention to actually evict and having the order in hand with the ability to evict? Is that where we might see that, why that disparity would be there, or that discrepancy between numbers?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, that's exactly right. So that is a number that can be useful because there are evictions that are pending in the courts now, just waiting for moratoriums to end to be able to go through the process. However, from those that we have spoken with, not all landlords are proceeding with evictions and then waiting for the moratorium to end. They're actually waiting to proceed with evictions in its entirety until after the moratoriums end. So though that data would be helpful to look at, and we do have that information, it wouldn't tell the whole story and would definitely underreport cases of evictions in our community.
Got it. No, thank you very much. All right. Unless there are no other questions, this item is on the agenda again for just information discussion only. So appreciate it. Now I teased item number 10, but here it is, legislative update. MAG Policy and Government Relations Director Nathan Pryor will provide a report. Thank you, Nathan.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next slide, please. Today I'm going to focus this presentation on the recently passed Senate larger transportation infrastructure bill, known as the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. A lot more to come on this. It still needs to head over to the House, but encouraging news on the infrastructure front. Just to note, as I talk about some of these dollar amounts and programming, this combines surface transportation reauthorization with additional funding provisions. So, and I think you'll see that here in a moment. Next slide, please. So what we're really talking about is the overall bill is 1.2 trillion for what's being labeled as traditional infrastructure, with about 550 billion above normal annual baseline spending. So there you can see kind of the big breakout, if you will, US DOT, Corps, EPA, and others all rolled up in addition to that annual baseline spending. Next slide, please. So focusing on US DOT, the reauthorization piece that I mentioned represents about 294 billion over 5 years via the Highway Trust Fund. So the addition comes in is that plus that you see there, about 274 billion in extra highway trust fund and one-time appropriation. So significant amount of money flowing to and through U.S. Department of Transportation. Next slide, please. Looking more specifically at Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration, you can see again those 5-year baselines represented in the normal surface transportation reauthorization, and then what the infrastructure bill increases. So for Federal Highway Administration, seeing a 49% increase above baseline, and for Federal Transit Administration, about a 65% increase above baseline. Of note as well, Federal Rail Administration to receive under this proposal $66 billion, which is 11 times higher than last year and equivalent to the last 18 years of funding. So not an insignificant amount going to Federal Rail Administration. Of note, of that $66 billion, $12 billion is being set aside for intercity service. We've seen, of course, a lot of media around Amtrak's proposal for linking Tucson metro area to Phoenix metro area with more frequent Amtrak service. So I believe that it would come out of that intercity portion, that $12 billion. Also of note as discretionary grants, both formula and competitive, coming in at around $100 billion. Of note, some of you, the ones we call attention to more regularly, infra grant to receive $3.2 billion, electric vehicle charging, $5 billion, and on the transit side, capital investment grants, $8 billion. Next slide, please. So we've been receiving questions from our membership. Is the region ready to draw down and spend new funding? So the answer is, while we have yet to receive the draft tables with the sub-allocations of funding to the state and region, the answer is yes. You know, the MAG investment plan clearly shows significant need in our region, fast-growing state, fast-growing region. The slides in front of you is a two-pager recently put together by our staff. Please go to the website. This is posted on the MAG Management Committee meeting page for today. Take a look at it, really calling your attention to that blue block on the second page, listing improvements needed in the region, traffic interchanges in I-10, freeway widening projects, and more. Also of note too, you know, a new dollar that comes into the region has a tide to the effect of rising tides. You know, it enables the next dollar to flow down to the next project. So, Mr. Chairman, a lot more to come on this. We'll be watching it as it goes over to the House side, any reconciliation and conference, and we'll keep you posted with any updates. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Nathan. Are there any questions from membership? Okay. Hearing no questions, we will move on to agenda item 11. Requests for future agenda items. Are there any requests by membership for an item on a future agenda? Okay, hearing none. Agenda item number 12, comments from the committee. Are there any announcements from membership? Hearing none, I'll just say, I think many of you may have heard regarding Brad Lundahl from Scottsdale. He's currently in the hospital in serious condition, as I understand, and just wanted to wish him and his family and all of his colleagues in Scottsdale, of course, that we all hope for his speedy recovery as a friend and as a colleague. And with that, business is now concluded. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.